This is Barry Suttle for English 7741, and this is my Critical Reflections on Teaching video commentary. The lesson that I chose is a history lesson taught to middle school students, and the segment of the lesson that I chose is about deals with the pirates of the Barbary Coast in the early 1800s.
So, the main theme for this unit, right, one of the main themes you have to remember is that when an area expands its territory, like the United States is doing in this period, right, the early 1800s, Jefferson era, when territory expands like that, it can be positive in some ways. We talked about some of those ways, right? The economy is now better. Farmers have more land, right? They can produce more. Congress is excited. They want to see the opportunities in the fur industry that are out there. We talked about all that. But you have to remember that everything comes at a price, right? There's another side to every story. And from other groups' perspectives, territorial expansion might be negative, right? It might be harmful. It can even lead to war sometimes, and that's what we talk about today. All right.
The first thing that I want to call attention to is the placement of the camera. The camera is in the centered in the back of the room, and because it is in the back, the viewer's involvement is at a far social distance. However, by being at some distance from the teacher, the viewer is able to see a fairly large representation of the students and get a general feel for the movement in the room. For example, you could see the other teacher walking around, so you just kind of get a general feel for the room. The opening of this segment, the introduction to this segment, the teacher makes a statement that everything comes with a price. There's another side to every story. This is an attempt to engage the students to construct meaning. Rather than just give them facts and dates about the pirates of the Barbary Coast, he ties it into the commerce that was being done between the United States and Europe as the United States was enlarging its footprint in the world, and he talks about how the ships carrying the merchandise had to sail past these countries of the Barbary Coast and the tensions that it caused.
We're talking about something called the first Barbary War, and we're talking about how the merchant class of America was negatively affected by this territorial expansion. Okay, we're on the second page of the notes, by the way. There's only two sections we can fill out today. You know how it goes as you go along. If you see anything underlined, fill it in. It might get cramped at times. I'm sorry for that, but please try your best. So, you might remember when you were reading the Constitution, Mr. Martin, there's that one section about piracy, right? And we talked about how these are some of the connotations that we give to pirates, right? We name baseball teams after them. We have a very lighthearted and almost comical approach to them, right? But
I want to also call attention to the use of graphics. As you can see, there's a whiteboard on the left side of the screen that has some writing on it. For the most part, it's illegible because it's too far away from the camera, so the viewer can't even read it very well without really straining. And I'm not sure if they have anything to do with this lesson anyway. But also, there's a smart board, and I love the way he uses the graphics on the smart board in this instance here, which shows the images of how culture often portrays pirates as fun-loving and even humorous. And this is in contrast to the description of the pirates that he's going to give in the lesson. But the lighting in the room makes it a little difficult for the viewer to see. If the lighting of the general room was a little bit lower, it would be easier to see. Although I've got to assume that the students there can see it just fine. He also ties in the Constitution. He's also bringing back the students' prior knowledge to help them construct meaning, and he addresses the Constitution, which they've studied before, and how it makes mention of pirates, and now he's giving them some concrete examples of why that was addressed.
piracy is a serious problem. It's a serious problem in today's world. We talked about that, right? Captain Phillips, the African pirates in Somalia. And it was a problem in the early 1800s as well with the first Barbary War, which is what we talk about today. There were two separate Barbary Wars. All right, the first one we discussed today was 1801, 1805, which was Tripoli. The second was are the areas I'm talking about, right?
Another good use of graphics where he has the map on the left side of the whiteboard, and I believe that those are notes on the right side.
Your micro version, here's your macro version. We're in this area right here. Okay, Northern Africa, about the Mediterranean Sea.
And this is a constraint of having a camera that is stationary because the teacher has walked off the screen to show the students um, something to look at, evidence of what they're looking at, but the viewer can't see it.
There were 4 African states called the Barbary Coast States or the Barbary States. There were Barbary pirates in those states, and here they are. You have Morocco, right? Morocco was an independent kingdom. You also have Algiers, Tunis, and Tripoli. They had a very close allegiance, let's say, to the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire is present-day Turkey, very powerful at this time, had a lot of influence in this area, including over these states. So they were connected with the Ottomans. All right. Again, Northern Africa and countries like the United States and Europe, they did a lot of business in the Mediterranean. Right. There's a lot of trading in this area. Here's the thing you have to remember about the Barbary states. This part of Africa is mostly the Sahara Desert, right? There's very few resources from the land. They were not as prosperous as Europe or America. They developed very differently, all right? And they were very jealous of our wealth and Europe's wealth. They didn't like seeing us, becoming rich right outside their borders in the Mediterranean. So,
another good example of using context to help the students construct meaning.
They would resort to piracy, okay? Let me ask you this first. This word Barbary, does it sound like another word? No? In the back, go ahead. Barbarian, you said? Okay, what does that mean, barbarian or barbarian? Okay, right, absolutely. Barbary means savage or cruel, right? And that's the perfect way to describe these pirates that we're talking about today.
This is a good example, again, of the teacher linking students' prior knowledge since they must have studied the barbarians earlier. And it's also an example of the teacher eliciting responses to construct meaning. It also kind of serves as a contrast to the majority of this lesson, in which the teacher mainly just lectures.
You have to remember this was state-supported piracy. Okay, when you think about traditional pirates like Blackbeard, O'Gorman Kidd, like Jack Sparrow, they acted independently, right? They had no connection to any other country. But these pirates that we're talking about today that we go to war with, they were supported by the governments of their states. Okay, so in other words, the leader of Tripoli, called the Pasha, he would support the pirates by giving them money, or supplies, or ships, right? And that's important. That's part of the reason why they were so powerful, why they were such a threat. Who had a question? Yeah, go ahead. Sounds like what? I'm sorry. Parsley? Okay. Interesting. Anyway,
This poor kid makes an awkward observation, but it highlights how uncomfortable the teacher is with dialogue with the students. Granted, it would be difficult to think of something to say when the student compares parsley to Barbary, but that was a pretty dismissive remark that the teacher makes and then moves on. However, I did notice that the class didn't giggle or laugh at the student. That might say something about the teacher's classroom management, or maybe it's just that these kids are nice kids.
commerce in the Mediterranean, right? We have cotton. That's something that Europe and Asia wants. So our ships are passing through this area. Europe has goods that we want. Asia has silk that we want. So their ships are passing through. And these pirates were not as wealthy and also have, religious tension with us, right? They're Muslim, remember, the Ottomans, they're Muslim, we're Christian. That adds fuel to the fire. and they start attacking our ships, preying on our ships, and those Europe ships in this area, and this coast becomes known as the Barbary Coast. That becomes a problem for Jefferson and the leaders of Europe, right? It's a problem when.
So this is the end of that segment, but he closes it. Closes this segment. Obviously, there's more to the lesson than this, but he closes this segment with more specific facts that tie the trade with the countries to the trade between America and Europe, with the sailing their ships past these countries with such little resources. And he also introduces the religious tensions, which helps also the students to construct some meaning to their learning.